Kay, Kay, come here. Yeah. Bob, can you turn this up? Can you, can you turn the volume up or what happens is when I sit down it's fine. But when I stand up to do the prayer and all stuff, you can't hear anything. You don't want to hear that? Oh, okay. Right. I I prefer the lapel. We don't have to do it tonight, but if we can go back to that for me, I appreciate it. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just like,
Test.
Mr. Mayor, at 7 o'clock.
All right, thank you. I'd like to call the public hearing to order on ordinance 2020 rezoning the property at Lake Murray Boulevard. Is there anybody here to speak on that behalf? That's Ellen John, your property on. Come on up. This is the public hearing portion.
Thank you very much. It's my privilege to be here, and I'll just begin by saying I hope that we can bring something that I started to an end. In my life, I've always set my goals high. In my personal life and in my business life, and for my customers and clients, it's just always the highest. That's what I seek to achieve. I never have had a desire to be the cheapest or the lowest cost or any way to cut corners. I want to do things in the best and the highest way that I can. And someone said you should set your goals just a little beyond your reach. And I've done that many times in my life, and usually I've succeeded. But when I purchased that property, that was beyond my reach. I had hoped to develop it and to put a building on it, but it was just more than the revenues that I had. And there's very high tax on that property, and I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars, and I'm still spending that on that property. So I'm ready for, we have a contract with the Lexington Medical Center. I'm ready for them to obtain that property at a good price and let life go on in myself. And I want to appreciate the service that you as councilmen and women give in our community. This is a great community. I love it. People are giving people. People are respectful of one another. And it's just a wonderful place. And to have you serving and leading us in this way is a real honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else to speak on the rezoning request? Seeing none, I will call the public hearing to close. We'll now call to order the regular council meeting. I'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation read by me, and would all please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dear Lord, please spare folks down on the Gulf Coast with the Hurricane Sally coming through, and spare us because we're probably going to get the residual of that. But I ask you to be wary and cognizant of all the people that are working hard to make our lives a lot better, including this council. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. You have the reading of the minutes. You can't hear me. Reading of the minutes from the amended minutes from June 16th. Do I have a motion for the amended minutes of June 16th?
So moved. I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. The reason why I'm hesitating, I'm looking at what was amended, and apparently it was that one sentence. This agenda was posted on Friday, June 12th, 2020, to meet FOIA requirements. Is this something new that we have to do, or?
It was something that was in FOIA starting, I think it was like last year when they made the changes, and we just weren't incorporating it.
So it was since last year?
But it was just brought to our attention in June, so that's why we're amending this one set, and everything else since then has been included in that.
So we got to go back and amend every minute we had between last year and then?
No, this is the last one we'll do. If anybody has a problem with any of them prior to that, they can take us up on it.
Yeah, okay. All right. All in favor of the amended June 16th, 2020 meeting, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It's unanimous. The September 1st, 2020 meeting minutes. I have a motion for acceptance of that meeting.
So moved.
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Sickinger's made a motion, Mr. Bush second. Are there any modifications, any changes to that? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? It's unanimous. Report of standing, administrative briefing. Mr. Brown, do you have any changes to your administrative briefing for us?
Nothing to add, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Do we have any changes for Mr. Brown in his administrative briefing? Anybody have any changes for that? Great. New in-town businesses. Wow, this list is getting longer and longer, Mr. Sickinger. You going out recruiting people?
Yes. Well, that's the goal anyway, right?
Good.
Yeah, if with your permission, Mayor. Okay. Axe Properties LLC, CISA Lubes, Coco Herbals, Dante Cantrell Auto Sales, Mathis Transport, Something Extra, and Storage Rentals of America. And you'll see them up on the slide as well.
Cool. Thank you. Is there any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none. Consideration of communications. I would like to, a couple of things I'd like to do. Since I became mayor, one of my biggest things was to develop relationships with people inside the town and outside the town. We have a candidate for Richland County Council, Mr. Derek Pugh. I'm going to call him up he wanted to introduce himself to me. He's running, and I believe to replace Joyce. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he won the primary against Joyce Dickerson. And the more relationships we have, especially with Richland County, I think it'll be a better relationship for the entire town at all. So anyway, I asked him to come to introduce himself to us. I hope that your campaign is going well, and wanted to thank you for coming and introducing.
Absolutely, sir. First of all, I'd like to thank you and the council for allowing me to come and introduce myself. My name is Derek Pugh. I'm from the metropolitan area of Dillon, South Carolina. I'm a graduate of Benedict College. I also hold a master's degree from Webster University. I'm currently the deputy director at the South Carolina Youth Challenge Academy. I work out of the South Carolina Military Department under the direction of General Van McCarty. I'm excited about the opportunity to represent the Democratic Party in the upcoming election. I'm more excited about the opportunity to forge a great relationship with the town of Irmo. I'm very familiar with the town of Irmo. I do know that you got to pick a side, whether you're Dutch Fork or Irmo High School. I also know that if you are in this town, you need to make sure that you're at the Okra Strut when they're having it. And I'm upset because we're not having the Okra Strut this year because I was looking forward to participating in it. But I understand the current situations that we're in. Mr. Mayor, I'm looking forward to a healthy, great relationship when it comes to Richland County Council when it deals with Irmo on this side, sir.
That's fantastic. I appreciate you saying that. Again, that's why by you introducing yourselves to everybody on council, we're not strangers anymore.
Absolutely.
So I wish you the best. Hope you're victorious in November. And when that happens, don't be a stranger. We'll call on you. You come back. I'll come to you and talk to you about things we need from Irmo.
Thank you, sir. And I appreciate it again for the time. The council, thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you. The Small Business of the Month. Mr. Danielson, you got another award to give away.
We do. We do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know it says, in this agenda, Danielson.
Yeah.
After. I do want the public to know that Danielson has nothing to do with the actual award.
Oh, okay.
That is selected by the Irmo. That is selected by the Irmo News and the Irmo Chamber of Commerce. They are the ones actually, and I wanted to make that point today. I'd love to take credit, but the guy getting it is one of my dearest friends. So I just want to make sure there's separation there and no conflict. So
okay.
Again, I congratulate him and love to just give him the award out here in front.
Well, that's fine. Let's go up front here and
Sounds good.
call him up. With
Mr. Scott Jones, would you like to come up?
Scott Jones, American Floral. Well, and this is an award from the Irmo News and the Chamber. So we're awarding it here.
Yeah, it's an award from us, from the public, but we don't select the winners.
That's fine. So we didn't select the winner, so how you won? Congratulations.
He's good. That's why.
Presentation of American Floral in recognition of being the small business of the month in the town of Irmo, September 2020. Scott, congratulations.
And it's lovely like you came.
Yes, thank you.
One more. Thank you.
When you do good things, good people and good places.
Okay, anything else? Any more receipt of communication? No? Seeing none? Presentation by citizens on agenda items only. Mr. Wade Deloach. You come up front.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Just want to address where the cemetery is being annexed back to town of Irmo. Irmo Outreach would be proud to be a part of rebuilding this cemetery, and I'd like to know that the community to know how important it is. And I think it's going to be a big draw to bring the community together for a lot of different reasons. One of many is the historical value of the cemetery. And there's actually people who were born slaves that were buried in the cemetery. And I think it being a black cemetery and the history behind it, it'd be a good thing for the town to take on responsibility for us to rebuild the cemetery and bring it back. After we get through with it, we hope to build have a memorial for the ones that are in there, and the whole town, everybody will be invited too. I'd like to thank you and council for all y'all done on this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. George Glassmeyer.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'd like to address items 10A and 10B. As to item 10A, I note on the agenda that Lake Murray Country is seeking some funds from this resource. As you may know, under our current IRS regulations, every nonprofit in this country has to submit an annual form called a Form 990. And I've printed off the salient pages of Lake Murray Country's most recently available Form 990 for the period ending June 30th, 2019. And a couple of things I note on there. First of all, their current year per the period ending 2019, their salaries, other compensation, and employee benefits totaled $495,650, and their executive director, according to the Form 990, Ms. Atria, annual salary was $158,328 with an additional $23,904.
I apologize. What does that have to do with this agenda item? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm not here to judge somebody's salary. What is your comments on this agenda?
Well, sir,
item
you're
as far
eating
as
up
the
my
motion?
time. I have the floor. I'm addressing item 10A, and rather than
Well, you're talking about salaries.
Yeah,
and
that's
not a
right.
part of
That's
our-
right. And I want to.
That's not a part of what this meeting is about. We're not judging her salary. So you have a choice to make. Either you can tell us what you like about this or don't like about it.
Okay, what I don't.
But
I'll
you
tell you right
don't-
now.
Point of
if you'll
order.
be-
Point of order, Mr.
I'll tell you
Mayor.
right now, what I don't like about it.
Point of order. No, stop. Stop. Point of order, Mr. Mayor. Please let him finish.
Thank you, sir. I'll tell you right now what I don't like about it. I don't like the idea of Irmo Town Council dedicating public funds to an organization that has expenses that high in salaries, both for the entire staff and for the director. I wonder how much bang we would get for the buck using public money that belongs to Irmo. Does that make sense now, Mr. Mayor?
Somewhat.
Good.
Okay.
As to item 10B, as I understand this proposal, the town would either provide the money or guarantee those funds. Since when did the town of Irmo get in the banking business? And if they're guaranteeing the funds, I'd like to get a piece of that action because I'd love to be able to loan out other people's money at no risk and draw interest off of it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Any more? Anybody else would like to comment on it? Seeing none. Unfinished business. Third and final reading of ordinance 2017 to amend the Irmo Town Code. This is to allow inspections of rental properties. Is there a motion for third and final reading?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Sickinger made a motion. Mr. Bush seconded. And is there comments?
As previously mentioned in the other readings, I'm in favor.
Mr. Bush?
I yield my time.
Mr. Danielson?
I'm good with it.
And Ms. Condon? Okay. Will the clerk read the roll?
Mr. Bush,
Yay.
Ms. Condom,
Yay.
Mr. Danielson,
Yay.
Mr. Sickinger,
Yay.
and Mayor Walker.
Yes. Third and final reading of ordinance 2018, and that's to annex the property on Archers Lane, single-family residential, owned by the Harvesting Community Group. Is there a motion for third and final reading?
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bush, Ms. Condom made a motion, and Mr. Bush seconded. Okay. Ms. Condom.
I think this is a historical place that needs upkeep and probably needs some protection. There are a lot of teenagers in the area that evidently like to knock tombstones over and everything else. Anyway, I think we should respect this because there are a lot of people buried there going back to 1850, I believe. And, this, if we don't respect history, we'll have no respect for the future. So I'm for it.
Okay. Mr. Bush?
I yield my time.
Okay. Mr. Danielson?
I agree with Councilwoman Condom. We have to, it's something that should be taken care of. And by bringing them into the town of Irmo, at least we got some control.
Okay. Mr. Sickinger?
Yeah, I'm in favor.
Okay. And I'm ready for a vote. Mr. Clerk, read the roll.
Mr. Bush,
Yay.
Ms. Condom,
Yay.
Mr. Danielson,
Yay.
Mr. Sickinger,
Yes.
and Mayor Walker.
Yes. It's unanimous. Third and final reading of ordinance 2019. That is the ordinance reducing the number of required readings to pass a town ordinance from 3 to 2. And if I can make this comment, I think this goes into effect next year, right? Or January? Is this when it goes into effect?
It would go into effect in about 10 minutes when you pass it.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. Let's make a motion. Is there a motion for third and final reading?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second? Okay, Mr. Danielson and Mr. Bush. Mr. Danielson.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to briefly repeat my comments from our last meeting. And when there's an opportunity, it's clearly a commercial piece of property, be it neighborhood or general. When there's an opportunity to help and assist one of the best citizens in this town, the Adaires, get maybe a few more dollars out of it as general commercial and to a much larger entity. And I'm just, in favor of making sure that we make that happen.
2019, right? Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. Mr. Bush?
It just reiterate what we've said in the last two is that it'll get rid of this last reading and
Yeah, I'm off the reading, sorry.
make things a little bit quicker.
Okay. Ms. Condon?
There are only 2 towns in South Carolina that have 3 readings. The other one is Calhoun Falls. And I think we can go ahead with the 2 readings. It will, there'll be 3 meetings, counting the workshop, but only 2 votes. And I think that gives people time to express their opinion, and I think it's a good idea.
Mr. Mayor, I apologize. I jumped ahead. I'm so excited to help the Adaires.
I'll let you reiterate that in a minute.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sickinger?
Yeah, anything that we can do to improve the efficiency of how council works, I'm in favor.
Again, we are trying to streamline this process, and I appreciate the effort of us having at least 2, having 1 council meeting and 1 workshop every month, and I think that will go into effect next year, if not earlier. But as far as us having 3 readings, that 3rd reading is boilerplate. Like tonight, we're doing 3rd and final reading of 3 ordinances here, and there is no discussion. We already voted on it. We already debated it. We can save that whole process by going to 2 readings. So, the clerk read the roll.
Mr. Bush,
Yay.
Ms. Condom,
Yay.
Mr. Danielson,
Yay.
Mr. Sickinger,
Yay.
and Mayor Walker.
Yes. Second reading of ordinance 2020 to rezone the adjacent property on South Carolina 60 Lake Murray Boulevard, property owned from Mr. John and Ellen Adair. Mr. Adair spoke on it earlier today at the public hearing. Is there a motion for second reading?
So moved.
Is a second? Mr. You messed me up. Mr. Sickinger made a motion. Ms. Condon seconded. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Sickinger.
Yeah, I'm in favor because it makes sense that be general commercial.
And Ms. Condon.
I think medical facilities are always an asset, or usually, and I know this one will be, because I think we all have great respect for Lexington Medical, and it's right in a row with Walgreens and 2 other doctors. It's like Medical Row, which is good. So I strongly approve of it.
Okay. Mr. Danielson, now is the time.
Hey, is this Groundhog Day? Again, I'm going to reiterate that it's general commercial property. Couldn't have said it better, Councilwoman Condon. And the fact that it's the people who own it and are selling it, to me, it's a personal personal thing. And I'm 100% behind this.
Got it. Mr. Bush?
I think it makes great sense.
All right. And I do as well. Anything we can do to attract more businesses. Unfortunately, it's not a tax revenue for us. Medical officers are not tax-driven revenue for us. But to have the fact that we can take care of our citizens that may need medical help, I think will always look favorably upon us in that process. Will the clerk read the roll, please? Second reading.
Mr. Bush,
Yay.
Ms. Condom,
Yay.
Mr. Danielson,
Yay.
Mr. Sickinger,
Yes.
and Mayor Walker.
Yes. The second reading of ordinance 2021 to amend the Irmo Town Code, rental property registration, increasing the annual registration from $50 to $150 per year, and the non-payment penalty from $100 to $500. Is there a motion for second reading?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Sickinger made a motion. Mr. Bush second. Go ahead, Mr. Sickinger.
I think it's an update to our fees, and it's a way to continue to diversify our revenue stream.
Okay. Mr. Bush.
I agree with Eric. I think that it's been past due to bring these rates in line. So,
Okay. Ms. Condom.
Knowing that we're going to have a smaller revenue stream, I think we have to do everything we can on the lowest level to raise money for the town, just to maintain what we've already got. Anyway, I'm for it.
Okay. Mr. Danielson?
Yes.
I think
Citizen safety is the most important thing here. I do believe the $50 registration is, I mean, why have it? I mean, it needs to be substantial. We need to be able to track these places, and these are we talked about this mostly being for the one-offs. And we've got to be able to step in when the citizens are living in a house that is not up to speed. So that's where I get my biggest piece of support. So,
let me, Mr. Sickinger.
Sir? Mayor? Oh, I spoke already.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me say this. The fee increase that you mentioned is not unreasonable. That's $12.50 a month over a year. If the people have to raise their rent by $12.50, I don't think that's going to run people out of Irmo as far as renting a house or facilities in town. You're right, though, Ms. Condom. We need to figure out different ways to raise capital, raise revenue, without having to go back to property taxes and direct taxes on the townspeople. So if we can do this along with the collection of this, we can make sure people pay. This could be a substantial chunk of money on a regular basis. And we have a list of everybody who has rental property. So it's not going to be hard to track this down. Will the clerk read the roll?
Mr. Bush,
Yay.
Ms. Condom,
Yay.
Mr. Danielson,
yay.
Mr. Sickinger,
Yay.
Mayor Walker.
Yes. Second reading of ordinance 2022. That removes jail time option from certain unsightly and unsanitary conditions. More importantly, the yard grass ordinance and some other ordinances. Mr. Danielson, you put that on there. Is there a motion for a second reading?
So moved.
Second.
I'll second.
Mr. Danielson and Mr. Bush. Mr. Danielson?
Again, I've seen some yards that are not very appealing, but I don't think throwing the owner of that property in jail is the answer to the problem. I don't think we've done it. We discussed this last meeting, maybe one time, there may be one incident that we've had to do that. And guess what? The yard's still not very nice. So that clearly doesn't work. I think it's an extreme, puts more pressure on the police department and the entire law enforcement area. There's got to be other ways we can help that. Somebody who's a potential, obviously, hoarder or non-compliant all the time. There's something else driving that, and that's where we need to step in and maybe help that person as far as what's driving that to happen, and maybe we can fix it from the other direction, especially with all the all the stuff that's going on in this country right now. That's it.
Okay. Mr. Bush?
Yeah, we brought this about because we just don't think jail time solves the problem. And I think it's only ever been used once and hasn't solved any problem. So we're going to remove that. And as Mr. Danielson said, find other ways, health department regulations, there's a lot of different laws out there that can help to mitigate nuisances or unsanitary conditions. So
Okay.
just need to clean up this ordinance a little bit.
All right. Mr. Sickinger?
Yeah, I'm in favor for a lot of the same reasons stated, and I'd love for it to be just a civil offense, but this is kind of halfway there, and I think things like Irmo outreach, and a lot of times when lawns aren't mowed or what have you, it's just because they can't get to it either physically or what have you. So that's why we have folks like that to help out. So I just wanted to point that out since he's in the room today.
Okay. And Ms. Condon?
This is a case to me of the punishment doesn't fit the crime. High grass is not a reason to lock someone up. And in addition, the jails now charge us a rental fee for the night plus a food and lodging fee or whatever. So it's going to cost us money anyway. So I think it would be easier if we found out what the problem was and sent help to them, called Mr. Deloach. There's a lot of things we can do to help other than locking somebody up.
And thank you. That's great. I am still on the fence about this, but I understand what you just said, and I agree with you. Throwing somebody in jail for not cutting their grass is something that it is a little extreme, a little harsh. It does cost us money when we put people in jail.
It does.
It'll cost us more than the $25 to get their grass cut. Certainly a lot more than that. Like you said, we have the Irmo outreach. We can call on them to figure out what they need help with. Maybe they need help cutting their grass at one time. It's during the process. But I think that I'm coming around to this, that it is a little extreme. But my question to you, counsel, is what is the alternative? What can we do to help them to figure out why they're not cutting their grass or why they're violating that law? What is the penalty to get them to comply?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Dickinger.
So I think that's a good point, good question. I don't think necessarily the answer is going to be a penalty. I think one of the things I was going to say anyway, and I got sidetracked earlier myself, is the way our code enforcement officers work right now. And, we've said a lot of things in support of the police over the last couple of months, and I think maybe we've missed specifically calling out our code enforcement, who has to go into these situations as an officer and give them a citation or give them a warning, an abatement notice. And these code enforcement officers do an incredible job of community outreach, working with the homeowner and trying to figure out what really the problem is. And I think most of the time it's not truly neglect. It's they got busy, they were out of town, or they simply couldn't handle it. And a lot of times they're going to be our gateway to figuring out, and we should speak with them and say, how can we improve this situation, or what should we do differently? Maybe we can do that in a work session.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Clerk, read the roll, please.
Mr. Bush,
Yay.
Ms. Condom,
Yay.
Mr. Danielson,
Yay.
Mr. Sickinger,
Yes.
Mayor Walker.
No. New business, approval to accept unanimous recommendations from the Irmo Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee to award $21,945 to the Lake Murray Country and $11,055 to the Irmo Chamber of Commerce. This was a meeting this is a result of their meeting where the Tax Advisory Committee sat through, negotiated looked through all the applications and decided to give us this recommendation. Is there approval? Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second. Second? Okay, I second it. Will the clerk read the roll? Or is there a discussion? I'm sorry.
I've got a question. Is there anybody from this committee here tonight?
I don't see anybody. Do you have a question about it?
Well, I would like to know how they determine the split.
There is a law, a state law that governs some of this. I can't quote it right off, but that's what they go by.
I don't necessarily have a problem, Mr. Mayor. I just would like to know how we determine that number, but
Bob, can you tell us what the breakdown is, please? I know it was, first of all, how much money do we have in total?
There was 33,000, and they decided to go with 2/3 to Lake Murray Country because they promote tourism outside the 50-mile radius
Right.
of Irmo. And then the chamber does qualify, but they don't really spend as much time promoting tourism as they do promoting businesses.
Well, okay, and that's fine, but I do have a question about, there was 33,000, but I thought there was another pot of money, a 60% pot or something like that.
There is. I mean, there's a restricted portion of that and also the privileged portion. It's just all bunched together because they both qualified for both pots.
So how much we got in the other pot?
This is 33,000 was the total in the pot.
Okay. So there is no other sums of money anywhere?
This is all the accommodations money.
I thought we had more than that for some reason. Maybe I'm mistaken. Mr. Bush, Mr.
So nobody seconded this, or where do we go from here? I mean, I would motion.
I seconded.
Okay, I would
Defer it.
defer this. I mean, I could make a motion to defer.
Okay,
And
why
then
are
we
we
can get
doing
some
that?
more facts on it and understand the split.
Well, you can't defer it unless you're going to make a decision by the end of September because state law requires the report to be turned in by 1 October.
1 October.
Okay. So you want to make that motion to defer it?
Yeah, I will make a motion to defer.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second, and
Okay.
we'll
Motion and second
somehow make a.
to defer this until next meeting.
You have to have a special meeting. There's not a next meeting. I mean, you guys have
Right.
to make a decision in next
Right.
week.
Right.
There is a whole list of things that go along with this, and I'm not saying I agree with it, but it's from the state of what we ought to do with this money.
Well,
And I think they ought to be entitled to see it. I saw it a couple of 3 years ago. I
Yeah.
just don't remember it all.
that's fine. We don't need to micromanage our committees like that. That's the whole reason why we had the previous council destroy that whole committee. If the committee got together, worked through this, and came up with this recommendation to us, it's up to us to either approve it or change it. But deferring it is not the way to go. We have to make a decision before the end of the month. Mr. Sickinger?
Yeah, I'm not necessarily opposed to the breakdown or to the funding. I'm not sure if the ATAX committee was aware of some of the information that was brought to us tonight, but obviously Lake Murray Country does good work, and so does the chamber.
Right.
And I certainly do not want to be one of those council members that doesn't listen to the ATAX committee because they put in their time, energy, and invested all of that to make this recommendation carefully. So I'm fine deferring it to a special meeting, but that'll give me the time to do my due diligence that I wasn't able to do.
Mr. Danielson?
Well, I guess I started this parade. Didn't mean to. I just wanted to know, did they have the documentation that's required? Has Bob reviewed that to make sure they followed all those rules and regulations?
I attend the meeting, yes.
Okay, all right, so now I'm getting somewhere. You attended the meeting. Good of you to speak up on that, Bob. That was helpful. All the rules and regs have been followed.
Yes, sir. I mean, they both turned in applications. They both wanted money. They both asked for 15,000, which of course they couldn't get what they asked for.
Right.
But they wanted to split it 50-50. And like I said, after much discussion, they just decided that, in their opinion, Lake Murray Country did more tourism.
Okay.
I mean, it's just technically you guys could defer this, but you wouldn't be able to make. You could save the money. You have 2 years. So if you didn't give out this money this year, you could wait till October of next year to give it out.
No, we don't need to do that.
Okay.
I'm against deferring.
All right. Anybody else, any comments? Will the clerk read the roll on the deferment?
Yay.
Yay.
No.
Yes.
No. Okay, it's passed, then we're gonna defer this until when? We're gonna have a special meeting to do what? To say,
Prove it.
To look over let them see why they picked this and all. I know.
I mean, that's what the committee does. I mean, fine. Hey, okay, so it's been deferred. Mr. Bob, would you set up a special Zoom meeting?
Well, council deferred it. You have to pick a date. And
Right. How about if we do a Zoom meeting next week?
Okay.
Next Wednesday? Is that enough time, Bob? The 23rd? All right, let's do a Zoom meeting next Wednesday for this one item. Is that all right with everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody has a problem with that?
No.
Okay, next Wednesday, the 23rd. And by that time, we will either invite the members of that committee, the chairman of that committee here, or through the Zoom meeting, or invite them to participate in the Zoom meeting to answer any questions that we might have.
No, they're not required to answer questions. They vote as a committee, pretty much like council. You can't put individuals on the spot.
I understand, but apparently he has a question about how they came about that, right? Is that your question?
Not specifically. I mean, I just wanted to get some more facts around how the split works and some of those things. I mean, I was.
Well, can you explain to him how the split works? I mean, we already voted on deferring it, but
Defer it. Let's just defer it till September 23rd.
Well, I don't have the paperwork in front of me, but to give you a basic idea, if you make over $50,000 in accommodation tax, you're required to have an accommodation tax advisory committee to make a decision. And we made, I think, 56,000. Now, don't quote me on the numbers, but the first 25,000 comes off and goes into the town's general fund. That leaves you whatever's left over, and then after that, 30% goes into the restricted money, and the other 65% goes into what's considered anybody could use it. I mean, they could have deferred that and not given any money of that 65%, and council could have kept it in the general fund. But that's not, the law is written to promote tourism.
Right.
So they had 33,000 left over after the 25,000 went into the general fund to divvy up. And out of that 33,000, it was broken down, if I'm not mistaken, and like I say, don't quote me on this at this point because I don't have it right here. I want to say that it was probably in the neighborhood of $9,000 was in the restricted money, and you have to be qualified to get those funds, and both of these are qualified to promote tourism outside 50 miles from Irmo. That's the way the law is. It has to be outside 50 miles to promote it. Can't be in the Midlands. And then the rest of the money can be used for any kind of tourism promotion, whether it's putting up signs, landscaping, beautifying the park. All that promotes tourism.
Okay.
So that's the way the money is set up, and then these guys determine who gets it based on the application. The application's like 30 pages long.
Okay.
Okay, so what are we going to accomplish by this Zoom meeting then? Mr. Bush?
Be able to talk with Bob some more during the week and get more information around how.
Like he just said, you can't micromanage them on how they made that decision, the committee.
I'm not trying to micromanage the committee.
Okay, so-
Before I make a yes vote, I want to understand some more about it. That's all.
Okay.
I mean, I can give you the actual numbers, and then I can also, you can look at the applications if you want.
Okay.
Okay.
Nothing wrong with that.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I'm not trying to be. The thing is, most of us are well, 3 out of 5 of us are new council members. It's the first time we've had to deal with this, and so just like to understand a little better.
Okay, but the end result is they're going to basically get what they asked for, what they were awarded.
Depends on how the vote goes on September 23rd.
Okay. All right. Approval to make the unanimous recommendation from the Accommodations Tax Committee has been deferred until the 23rd of special Zoom meeting on the 23rd of September. Next is to approval to provide $250,000 in the Irmo Future Growth Corporation to assist with the small business struggling through the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Danielson, you made that, you put that on the agenda?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. We've been working on this for a couple of months now, 3 months. Had a meeting with the bank that is interested in doing this, but we've hit a snag. And we're trying to work our way through that. This is basically, this program is, and I'm talking about the lending assistant part right now. There are the beautification part, and then there's assisting the Irmo boys and gals thing over at Harbison Garden. But on the banking side of it, this is based off of an agreement. We'll be using the same bank. It's based off of an agreement that they utilize with the town of Aiken. And we asked them that we did not want to have decision-making process in the final word of the loan. And that gives the bank agina. Basically, it creates a lot more regulatory background for them to report to the feds. They have to treat them all the same. They can't make exceptions. If it's up to them, they're not really allowed to cut too many exceptions. And how they work it in Aiken is that they have a board of 3 or whoever they put together to approve it on the town's behalf, on the growth committee's behalf. They come to them and say, we recommend you make this loan. They tell them that. And then they'll make the loan and they'll do all the paperwork. But it's less than what it would be if they had to take the loan on as the sole underwriter. So that's where we're at. I told the bank that we would talk about it and see how we wanted to handle it. There are just a lot of other regulatory issues if the bank takes on the final approval process. They will make a recommendation to us, and it will be up to us to decide if we want to make that recommendation. Clearly, if they make the recommendation to make the loan, we'll make the loan. It's about those that are on the borderline that we need to talk about if we really want to go ahead and make the loan. The loan will also be capped at $10,000 because of other issues. And that'll give us bigger bang for the buck, and that will truly help the smaller businesses who need the help. So that's where we're at, and I was hoping to have better news, but this all went down last night on a conference call. But that's how Security Federal feels they have to do it. And just bringing it to you guys for your thoughts.
Okay.
And we can still put the money into the account, the $250, to have that in the account until we know exactly how it's going to roll out. But that's where we are, and then that would allow us to continue with the other portions once we funded this seed money. It'll allow us to go ahead and move forward with assisting, bringing into Irmo Arbor Day some of their money, some of the general people who are being generous right now. The Mungo Company, for one, getting that money, that'll allow us to build this thing up as we work through the system.
Okay,
But if we don't put the seed money in, we're not going to get anywhere. It's kind of hard to
Right.
solicit funds, and if the town doesn't put it up. And I will respond to, I don't normally ever respond to comments from the public in this forum, but I will respond that there are a lot of details that everybody doesn't know. And for instance, the bank would be sharing in the losses. We would not be taking the losses ourselves. So and we're doing them 10,000 at a time, so they should be minimal. So I don't really see the risk being any more than it was before. I just need to get my arms around who's on this little committee and how we do it, as far as yay or nay.
and
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
thank you. And I appreciate that clarification, and I agree with you. That $10,000 might be the difference between staying open or going out of business, you know, especially now with the COVID. It's not over. We've still got many people coming down with this disease.
Right.
Right.
It's not over, and the timing is still good.
Yes. Mr. Signature?
Yeah, as you know, I'm working with Councilman Danielson on this, and he's already made a lot of the points that I would make. So I think the only other thing is, and I've said it before about the businesses in town, but they are both literally and figuratively, in a manner of speaking, the lifeblood of the town, and our revenues as a town. And unfortunately, we have seen some businesses in town close. And I was just remarking on this the other day online that I went to go order from a place that I order from relatively regularly and found out the number doesn't work anymore. That's really sad to see, and I'd love to continue to do what we can as a town to support businesses through a tough financial period, because it means they come out on the other end stronger, and the town is stronger for it.
Okay. Mr. Bush?
Yeah, I agree. So the one thing I'd like to see, though, is like a very brief, like, bullet point of how the bank risk versus our risk, because I'm assuming all this money is at risk in that fund, but how much share there is between, you know, for a $10,000 loan, are we 50% of that?
That's probably where it's going to shake out. We don't have that particular document. I need to go back to him and say, we're okay with this fundamental approval process, and then we will find, I mean, we've got terms.
Okay.
We got all the terms there, but we don't have the risk terms worked out yet.
The risk terms, and then the other thing I'd like to see is the requirements. In other words, has to be a locally owned business.
We got 'em.
Has to be in the town limits.
Has to be in the town limits, has to be in place since June 1st, 18. Has to be a profitable business, and there's even credit scores in there for the borrower themselves, minimum credit scores.
Okay.
So we've got all that. I'll be happy to share that with you. Now, that much I have now. I just don't have the breakdown on the risk factor.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Condon?
Can we assume, since the bank's doing this, that they're credit worthy and that we will likely get the money back after we lend it?
Well,
Yes, that's why there is going to be a credit score
Okay,
minimum for the owner themselves.
good, because
That helps.
it bothers me, this $250,000.
we're not, correct me if I'm wrong, we're not lending the money out. We're just a backstop to the bank lending the money. Is that right?
Right, that's correct.
So the
correct.
bank will make the credit decision however they do it. We're just saying that we're gonna guarantee that $10,000, if somebody borrows $10,000 and decides not to pay them back, I believe the bank will go and try to recoup their money with all the
That's correct.
means they have to recoup it, including repossessing equipment and stuff like that. But the bottom line is, we're only gonna be liable for 50% of what they actually lent.
That's my goal, Mr. Mayor. I haven't firmed that up yet, but
Okay. That's what I'm understanding. But can we do this? Can we put that $250,000 in a line item on our budget as far as having it set aside until you come up with the final documentation, Mr. Danielson, that will be satisfied? I mean, we'll allocate $250,000, but we won't transfer that into a checking account for the organization.
That's fine.
We'll have it in a line item in our budget. Do you understand, Bob, what I'm saying? As opposed to having it, you write a check for them to deposit into their checking account. We'll just have a line item there in our budget for $250,000.
That's not a problem to set up a separate line. I'm just thinking about the check. I mean, if you need to get payment from it for something, we'll still need some kind of documentation prior to cutting the check. Is that okay?
Correct. All of this has to be documented, and it's more work we're going to put on our illustrious town attorney, who will draw this agreement up between Irmo Growth and the town of and Irmo Growth Development and the bank. So there'll be no, that all has to be done, but that'll move quickly once we get over our approval process. And I tell them we go back and we can do that, and we figure out how we want to do that here. But again, we won't make any loan that, we don't have to make any loan that they tell us,
Right.
that if it's a good loan, they'll recommend that it's a good loan, and that's what we'll do. Then there may be exceptions. There were probably, matter of fact, 53 loans made in the town of Aiken, city of Aiken, and they had, out of 53, the city approval group, whoever it was, they made 6 one-off loans that were not recommended. So,
Okay.
Could I have one more question?
Yeah.
Two, actually. So will that money, that's going to be in there indefinitely, or is there a term for how long that money, this $250,000 of town budget sits in that account? Just
it'll sit there as long as the development group, the growth group is in existence and operating.
okay. And then you were talking about the final decision on the loan. That would be the responsibility of the town or the council, or how?
That would
Or
be
would there be
the responsibility of the Irmo Growth Committee,
The growth committee, okay.
and how we decide to designate that. Obviously, we meaning us, who makes that decision. But the decision would come through the Growth Development Company.
Okay. Any other comments?
And
Will clerk read?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, we didn't, I don't think we did a motion or first or second on this.
Yes, we did.
You introduced Councilman Danielson, and we didn't actually do the motions.
You make a motion?
I do.
Okay, you second?
Second.
Okay. Happy? All right, will the clerk read the roll? Any more comments? Will the clerk read the roll?
Mr. Bush,
Yay.
Ms. Condom,
Yay.
Mr. Danielson,
Yay.
Mr. Sickinger,
Yay.
and Mayor Walker.
Yes. Thank you.
Good job, guys. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Presentation by citizens. This is an opportunity for citizens to talk about anything they want on the agenda or not on the agenda. I'd like to call Mr. Whit Klein up and explain to us this Irmo recycling event that we got coming up. This is an opportunity for citizens to clean out their closets and garages with all those things that you can't normally get rid of. And Whit, let us know how this works and when will it be.
All right. Saturday, October 3rd, from 8 a.m. to noon, down at the Irmo High School parking lot, we'll be doing probably Columbia's biggest recycling event of the year, and the only recycling event in the Dutch Fork area. So citizens of Irmo and the surrounding areas are invited to this event. Town of Irmo is working with Lexington County and Richland County to fund and put on this operation. And it's an opportunity for people that've got tires, couches, any item like that. Computers, TVs are a big one that we do that day. There's really nowhere to recycle TVs and computers and electronics the whole year except for this event. So I know code enforcement has a big issue with TVs laying out on the edge of the road. They're everywhere. You know, they get them off the road and they put them in the garage and they've been sitting there. Well, this is your opportunity to recycle that TV. You've got an opportunity and we need everybody to take advantage of it. Electronics, also hazardous waste like old pesticides, any type of chemicals, we'll be recycling all those. So it's items that are tough to get rid of normally at our county recycling facility. So this is an opportunity and hope everybody takes advantage of it. So it's Saturday, October 3rd, 8 a.m. to noon. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other? Mr. Wade? Oh, okay. Go ahead, Mr.
Yeah, I have a bench at home that's looking for a new place to roost in the park. If I could find somebody to get with, police department or one of you guys, let me know where you want the bench that we have donated to the park to be placed. I'd appreciate it. We're also looking for sponsors. Anybody out there that wants to sponsor a bench, we could place it in front of your business or in the park maybe with the permission of the council. We actually got 3 types of benches we're looking at. One without arms, maybe 3 or 4 people can sit. One with arms. Another one that folds out into a picnic table. Like to appreciate everything that y'all have done, and I'd like the citizens of Irmo to know that you can go to irmooutreach.org and apply for an application for help or to volunteer. And if you qualify, and I will come out. We also, if somebody has a broke down lawnmower and they can do the yard, we actually loan out a lawnmower free of charge if you need a lawnmower. So, irmooutreach.org. Thank you.
Mr. Lilch, just one second. Do you have enough information to give us pricing on those sponsorships? Do you know what it would
Not yet,
take?
but I've got them with 2 vendors. I'm trying to get a price from them and everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
George Glassmeyer, 100 Denbeck Road. A couple items. I want to go back to item 10B. One of the questions I have, and I thank Mr. Danielson for filling in some of the blanks for me here. Presumably, when these loans are made, there'll be an interest rate that's charged. I'd like to know if the town is going to get a piece of that action or not. And that's one of the questions I have. But more than that, on that same item, I was very concerned, and I thank Mr. Sickinger for bringing this to the attention of the chair, that the council entered into a lengthy discussion on an agenda action item without a motion and a second first. You're putting the cart before the horse. But what distressed me even more than that is when Mr. Sickinger pointed out to the chair that that was not done, that the mayor had a sarcastic response to him to the effect of, "Are you happy now?" Mr. Mayor, you should be happy when things are done correctly, and apparently you have no regard or you don't have the knowledge or the skill to run the chair, to be the chair and to run the gavel. And if you've repeatedly made these procedural mistakes at meeting after meeting, and if you can't figure out how to do it, I would encourage you to pass the gavel to somebody that can. Thank you.
Any more comments? Seeing none. Discussion item, none. Executive session, we don't have any. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Is there a second?
So I'll definitely second that.
You second it? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting is now adjourned.
It would be my pleasure to join you on some of these calls.
Yeah, this one was pulled together. It got canceled 3 times.
You know, I am not a lawyer,
Yeah.
but I play one at work.